Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football, from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
What is up? Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast on a Monday today here. My name is Tom Dougherty, your host. This is the college football edition of the GSMC Football Podcast on a Monday, as we had, at least 2/3 or 3/5 of the main Power 5 conference media days last week. We had the SEC, the ACC, and I believe the Big 12 last week. So we heard our comments from Lincoln Riley and Tom Herman. And Tom Herman doesn't know if he has any championship level players on his team. Like, didn't you recruit them, buddy? Like, you were stumped by an easy question. You could have said yes, and nobody would have questioned you otherwise. Well, you gotta, I guess, give it to him for his honesty, but it's whatever. And then we had the comments from Larry Fedora, which, I mean, I guess I only scratched the surface of, because that's what, I mean, he continued on in saying after the fact that he doesn't trust, or something to do with, the fact that he doesn't know if, like, we talked about, that football causes CTE, and that he doesn't, like, okay, buddy, there's been multiple studies from, like, legit academic and medical resources, I mean, and from medical foundations and science labs and blah, blah, blah. All very good, very reliable research and tests and all that stuff like that. And autopsies are done on actual NFL players, and found out that, yeah, they all had this and they all probably died from it. So, I mean, you had the poor family from the Washington State quarterback, Tyler Helinski. His parents had his brain looked at. And he had the brain of a 60-year-old. He's 22 years old, 21 years old, playing college football. So, I mean, yeah, any blow to the head. Soccer is not exempt. Basketball is not exempt. It's just football. The volume is going to be more than anything else. I mean, yes, and soccer maybe is a close second, because of the fact that you have a lot of headers, and guys and girls go up for headers, and they knock each other's heads, or they don't head the ball right, and they can get a concussion from just hitting the ball with their head. So, I mean, any kind of concussion is going to be part of it. I mean, I don't want to say it's going to lead to it. I don't want to say it's going to. I'm not a doctor, believe me. It's just I'm not that. But I just go off of what I've read and what I've researched, and it's not good. It's scary. And it's going to scare a lot of people. And I know Coach Fedora is probably trying to not scare people, but he's going to definitely came out and said that, his opinions, and it had to be kind of walked back by his own athletic director. So we'll go from there. And the UNC football is not going to, he's going to change all that much. They're not really that high profile anyways, but still, when a coach like that from a Power 5 conference has comments about CTE, we listen, because everybody has an opinion, and there's every school. I mean, we counted how many schools there were in just the Power 5 schools. Every one of those has a coach. Everyone has an AD, and they all have something to say, and I'll probably have an opinion on it. So he's right that it's not just football, but you can't go say that, we're going to ruin the game's going to be over because nobody's going to play it and everything. I know we've had the comment years ago was saying if 10% of mothers pull their kid or don't allow their kids to play football, it's over. I'm like, okay, please, it's not over. There's a lot of people who live here and football, especially flag football, in addition to the kind of implementation of that, and how it's like, oh, you're gonna play flag, oh, you come on, grow up, put on some pads, hit somebody. No, we're gonna play flag football. You can still learn the game, the X's and O's of it, play calling, coverages, routes, everything with flag football, and stay a lot safer. So football, collision sport. You're going to knock each other's heads together. You watch the trenches, watch the offensive linemen and defensive linemen come together. They knock each other's heads. Look at the first guy that they looked at, Mike Webster, the legendary center for the Steelers and all those championships that they won. He was a vegetable. He was 65 years old, and it seemed like he had like severe dementia, Alzheimer's. Could not remember where he was or what he did like the minutes before. So, I mean, he, of course, then when he passed, they look at Dr. McKee and Dr. Amalo look at his brain, and they find major lesions, major issues. I mean, you look at the slices in the autopsies and the cross sections of these brains, and you're like, that doesn't look right. That don't look right at all. So, I mean, it's out there. It's called chronic encephalopathic chronic traumatic encephalopathy. That's what CTE stands for. So chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So definitely going to be continuing on that watch. Is obviously the NFL is taking. I don't want to say finally, and then of course it gets backlash of the whole helmet rule and everything. But the NFL has known about it for a while, and they did definitely keep it under wraps a little bit. But now that it's definitely out there, they're going to start implementing more rules in order to deter it as much as they possibly can, because the NFL at its heart is a business, and we all know that. All right, back to college football, and I know we have there's going to be some media days going on today. Recording the show a little bit too early to get any quotes or anything for you guys until we'll do that on Wednesday for sure. For I think the Pac-12 is going today and tomorrow. Might have that switched up. One second. I mean, I have my day switched up. If anything, I know we have the Pac-12 and the Big 12 left over. I'm sorry, Pac-12 and the Big 10 left over. So Big 10 is today and tomorrow. Pac-12 is Wednesday and Thursday. So there you go. And we will definitely cover those. So, I mean, things to watch for regarding the Big Ten, obviously, Scott Frost is going to be in his first year at Nebraska. He's going to probably get bombarded today. I think they're going to hold that it's going to be in Indianapolis, where this is going to be. I know that today is Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Purdue, and Rutgers. So we'll hear from Coach Harbaugh. Like I said, we said from Coach Frost, and then of course James Franklin from Penn State, and others. So we'll be back on Wednesday, of course, to bring you all those quotes and give my comments on it if you guys want to hear that, which you of course do, right? And then of course and then starting on Wednesday will be the Pac-12, and then we'll cover that on Friday. So if anything, I want to look back at the ACC stuff regarding, this is an interesting situation where, Jimbo Fisher is gone, so no more needing to worry about Jimbo Fisher going to the SEC. This is a guy who talks really fast, and it's hard to kind of get a quote from because of his draw and because of the fact that he does ramble on a little bit sometimes. But you definitely don't have to worry about him if you're a ACC beat writer or anything, because he's off to the SEC, and he's going to have fun in Texas A&M. He's going to have a nice big stadium to play in like he did before, but I don't know. You had DeAndre Francois. You have a guy who played last year in James Blackman, and you could have made a decision there, but no. They whether it was money grab, you could come up with a million different reasons on why he left Florida State. Whether it was some sort of discrepancies in the inner workings of the program with the AD or anything. I know the whole transition from Bobby Bowden to him was kind of a weird one, but he's a guy who wants to make his money. Probably you saw how upset he got last year with the trials and tribulations that had to go through last season with the not so much successes as they used to have down there for those Noles. Those Noles fans are passionate, all right. So he obviously had a little bit of moment of weakness, gets involved with a fan last year, and then, of course, on his way out going over to, College Station in Texas. So, that's just, it's very interesting. It's very interesting what happens, but with the college football and how drama can get involved with 50 and 60-year-old men, and it's treating them like they're high schoolers. I'm like, okay, just bye. All right. Going back over as we're going to, preview for the Big Ten, media days. I know we did the Big Ten. We kind of did power rankings for the conferences. I know Big Ten. Obviously, we did. I was a little against the grain with putting Michigan number 2. It's kind of the consensus that Wisconsin is number 2, even though their schedule this year is actually pretty tough. I kind of go off of the Big 10 East is kind of the gauntlet, and then you have the Big 10 West, which is not, and you have Iowa over there who has a cupcake of a schedule this season, and I just look kind of, they're going to be solid enough to use that schedule and get some wins. So if they basically can beat Wisconsin, that's about it. The winner of that Wisconsin-Iowa game should win that side of the bracket. So that side of that division. So unless Wisconsin, obviously they have some tough schedule, they could trip up a couple different times this year, and Iowa can just roll by. Even with the loss, they can just take that one loss to Wisconsin. And if Wisconsin has 2 losses in conference, then that's it. Doesn't matter, and you'll have Iowa as the winner of that division. So looking at their schedules, that's the way I think it's going to wind up. But Wisconsin is number 2 in most people's power rankings. I put Michigan there because I think Michigan is going to end up being the second best team in this conference with the roster they have. And finally, Jim Harbaugh is starting to implement some of his ideas with a capable quarterback in Shea Patterson, of course, barring any injuries or anything. But their defense should be just fine. We'll find out. I mean, usually it's kind of a no names versus of skill players for Michigan, and we'll kind of figure it out. I know they haven't really had anybody of note too much on defense since like Jabril Peppers or something like that. And then on offense, I can't think. We're running back, really? When we really had a guy that we can think of at the top of our head that maybe go to the NFL or anything like that. But Shea Patterson's there, and I think he can help them leapfrog into the number 2 position. But there's 2 more teams in that side of the conference, that division, that are kind of like, whoa, what about us? And that's Michigan State and Penn State. And Penn State, I know they're kind of in the same position as Michigan, where yes, they have the quarterback, but what else? What else do they have? They lose their running back to the NFL. They have Trace McSorley, and it's basically going to be the Trace McSorley show, seemingly this year. And in a conference where you have some top pass rushers and some pretty good secondaries, you're going to have to beat Ohio State. Can you rely on a small, undersized quarterback that, yes, it has a great amount of heart and great amount of competitiveness, and is a great competitor in his own right, winning a game last year on a walk-off touchdown, pretty much? Are you going to be able to do that? And can you get through that schedule? And it's going to be tough. Penn State's going to have some hiccups this year, I think. And then Michigan State could be the sneaky team. Michigan State is actually on the ESPN power rankings ranked ahead of Michigan, and that's whatever. Everybody has their own opinions. I just think that Michigan's due. I know they've been underwhelming during the Jim Harbaugh regime. I just think they're due. They're due. So what's going to happen is that we have Brian Lewerke. Everybody kind of has a quarterback right now. I know that Ohio State still kind of was a little shuffling with their quarterback situation, but you have McSorley. The big 4 in that side of the division all have quarterbacks. You have Chase Patterson at Michigan, Brian Lewerke at Michigan State, and then at Ohio State you have what's going to be Dwayne Haskins probably, and then at Trace McSorley, obviously at Penn State. So all those teams are going to be in position to win, but just the head-to-head games are really what's going to come down to. Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. I don't know if Michigan plays Penn State this year, but it's obviously they're going to have to play a bunch of tough road games as it is. That Big Ten schedule can get pretty tough, and they can beat up on each other. So I know that we have a Northwestern there as well as a spoiler team that all these teams play pretty much. I think Northwestern does have to run the gauntlet this year. So they could play spoiler to a lot of different teams because they're pretty darn good as well. All right, that'll wrap it up for this segment. We'll come back and do some talk previewing the Pac-12 Media Days as well, as that's kind of what we're doing today, and then going over some expanded class rankings when we go back to our recruiting talk throughout the rest of the show. So everybody stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition on a Monday today here. We're talking media days, ones that have happened, ones that are going to be happening, ones that are happening today. As like I said, we'll see the Big 10 today from, I'm assuming they're going to do this from Indianapolis, as they would. They usually do the Big 10 events from Indianapolis. It could be wrong. It doesn't really matter what they do it at, but we're having the Big 10. I think it's, like I said, it was going to be Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers today. Tomorrow is Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin. So trying to bundle up some of those more powerful schools, more I want to say popular schools, but the ones that are actually going to play well this year, along with some of the ones that are going to be doormats. No offense, but it is going to be Scott Frost mania today, likely, as of course he is the belle of the ball, the highest profile new head coach in this conference. I was going to say in the whole country, but we have so many coaching movements. Pick one: Kevin Sumlin in Arizona, Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, Willie Taggart at Florida State. Maybe not the biggest name, but still. And then you get Scott Frost, obviously coming off from a undefeated season at UCF to go to Nebraska. So I'm actually excited. I'm excited for Scott Frost in Nebraska because I want Nebraska. I know Nebraska was a power when I was not here yet, and haven't really seen them play that great since then. And it's the Big Ten has been pretty much dominated by the Michigans and the Michigan States and the Ohio States. So and a little bit of Penn State in there too, but that's lately. And we haven't really seen Nebraska. Wisconsin obviously has been the big school in that division, along with Iowa, which is just kind of underwhelming Iowa team, or just Iowa program in general. The best part of that, I'm no offense to the football, but the best part of that right now, the program Iowa's going for it, is the whole wave thing, when they do that really cool thing where they wave to the children's hospital, and the children in this window, the fans will wave because it's hanging kind of like right over the stadium. It's a pretty cool little thing little big thing they do. I think they do it every game now, but it kind of became a thing last season as they finished building that hospital and now are using it for good things to help kids and get them healthy again. So always a nice thing to think about. But Iowa, good for University of Iowa. That's kind of cool. They built it right next to the football stadium, and you can peer right down into the depths of that big stadium there in Iowa City. So Big Ten, though, outlook for the season. We kind of went over the power rankings, how I kind of disagree. I agree with the rest of it. I just think Michigan is understated this year. I'm thinking that Shea Patterson is one player and he's going to go crazy and it's not going to matter. But I just think that they have enough talent. They're going to have enough talent on the outside. It's not like, they don't have any big name talent. They don't have any big name guys like a big offensive lineman or a big defensive lineman that's going to make waves, but we'll figure out who it is. There's a lot of guys who emerge during the season who grow and become better during the season. So, I mean, not everybody is as highly touted as sometimes. Obviously, quarterbacks are going to be the most talked about, probably most visible player. But not everybody's as highly touted as. I mean, did you guys know who Bradley Chubb was before the season, like 2 years ago, before he started playing really good? Or B.J. Hill, or any of the other linemen? So, I mean, we'll figure that out. I mean, Michigan draws some athletes, and they are able to recruit from a good area as well. So, you can go from there and kind of learn that, it's with Jim Harbaugh, if he finally is going to get a good roster, I would expect him to definitely use it. So if you want to watch that Big Ten, does it say, is Big Ten? Oh, actually, I don't have it. I don't have a TV date, which channel is it going to be on for the Big Ten? Is it going to be ESPNU, or is it going to be Big Ten Network? They're not giving me a channel for what, I don't know if it's going to be televised. Maybe online, you can figure it out. You guys can figure it out. There's going to be stuff on Twitter, every kind of thing to do. So, I mean, if you want to just look it up, Big Ten, I've probably figured it out. Probably the Big Ten Network, I would assume that they're going to air this on that for the media days. It's going to be on today. Like I said, the big school, it's going to be spread out. Like I said, spread out. Big Ten is going to be today and tomorrow, as I believe it's going to be on Big Ten Network, or is it going to be on CBS Sports? Yeah, so Big Ten Network live coverage. So if you have Big Ten Network, you can watch live coverage tomorrow and today. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, they're going to have the Pac-12 media days are going to be on ESPNU, I believe, for the Pac-12 guests on ESPNU. And then on top players in attendance, you're going to see Bryce Love, Justin Herbert's going to be there, Khalil Tate, Jake Browning. So basically, everybody you want to hear from, all the three big quarterbacks in that conference, and then also Arizona State's receiver N'Keal Harry, and the USC linebacker Cameron Smith will also be there as well. So you can you'll hear what the young quarterbacks have to say. I believe I know this is Jake Browning's last hurrah at Washington, whether he's going to do something or not, make a big splash, help his draft stock, or some sort of NFL stock that's left for Jake to get going here this season. And then Justin Herbert's the big guy at Oregon. And then, of course, probably the most dynamic and most talked about is the guy at Arizona, Khalil Tate, who has a new head coach, and Kevin Sumlin. And you saw what Kevin Sumlin can do with a mobile quarterback. Not the biggest X's and O's guys, but he's definitely going to get his team all revved up and ready to go for their games down there in Tucson as he comes over from the to the SEC to the Pac-12 to coach the Wildcats this year. But the most exciting guy I'm looking forward to watching, other than the quarterbacks, is Bryce Love, as he is the Heisman Trophy candidate for sure, with Jonathan Taylor from the running back position. But there's actually two other guys, Herbert and Khalil Tate, are also in that conference, and they could be very well in that Heisman conversation very quickly into the season. So, I mean, Herbert's probably the most exciting quarterback I'm looking forward to watching, because of the fact that he is still a dual threat guy, very much like a Carson Wentz model, where he's a tall, big frame, but is mobile and also has the arm to get it down the field. And you saw what he did in the short season. I mean, only didn't play the full season last year. Short term look at him last year was very nice, as he put up some good numbers. For those who are who want to pay attention to some other conferences and their media days, I can give you that right now. The MAC will be July 24th, so that's tomorrow. Today and tomorrow is the American. Today is the Sun Belt as well, and then tomorrow the Big South as well. So those will be on ESPN3, all comprehensive coverage. As I'm not an ESPN pub, I believe, I just want to let you guys know where to find this stuff, as ESPN3, of course. If you have that, you go on the ESPN app and go figure out where you can find. It'll probably pop up right for you. It'll say media days for whatever conference you would like to watch and hear from. So, like we said, for the Pac-12, I mean, the SEC, obviously, at 4 days, it's a one-day event for the Pac-12. It's just I thought it was today, Wednesday and Thursday, but I guess they're doing it all in one day on Wednesday. You think that Pac-12 would need 2 days, but especially if the SEC does 4 days of craziness, but it's whatever. The Pac-12 is like one-day event. They're going to have Chip Kelly, Kevin Sumlin, Herm Edwards are going to be there, Mario Cristobal. I told him Chip Kelly is probably the most I don't know. I don't want to say it's kind of probably tied with maybe a Jimbo Fisher moving over to Texas A&M, but the most talked about, most visible, biggest name, because this is a guy who was in the NFL, had success in the NFL, then left with the Niners, didn't have any success over there in San Francisco, but then comes back to college where he probably belongs and gets a really cool gig at UCLA. After, of course, Jim Mora gets removed and has his comments about his quarterback, but it's what we're not going to go into that. We've talked about that enough on this show. Go back about 2 months to all the Josh Rosen episodes I did before the draft started. But yeah, he ended up, it was interesting. Josh Rosen ended up being the last quarterback taken of those big four guys. So, and I think he's probably going to be the most successful, the quickest, honestly, because he's in Arizona and he's got some good weapons. But Tom, this is a college football show. He's not a college player anymore. Yeah. But at his alma mater, you'll have a new head coach, Chip Kelly, with a very dynamic offense, or at least a quarterback. If they're going to, I'm assuming he's picking Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who is supposed to be this electric, fast, athletic guy who is going to come in there and just set the world on fire, apparently. So we're looking forward to see that this season. Looking at the UCLA schedule for this year, the Pac-12 is interesting because, if you're in the South, especially if USC is kind of down, USC's revamping their quarterback situation right now. Who knows? If they put JT Daniels in there and he's crazy, then good for them. But you play. You're going to play two Arizona schools that both have new coaches and are still trying to figure it out down there. And then you have Utah and Colorado, which can be slip ups. They can be. But this year UCLA they haven't taken any slouches on their schedule. They play at Cincinnati to start off the season, and they come home, they play at home against Cincinnati. A home against Cincinnati to start the season. Then they go right over to Norman, Oklahoma, and play Oklahoma. In the second week of the season, September 8th is going to be UCLA and Oklahoma. Will be a good one before they come home against Florida State. And then they go into the Pac-12 schedule. They'll start with Washington, Cal, and Arizona. So, boom, boom, boom. And those are going to be home for Washington, away for Cal, and then home against Arizona. So, those can be. I don't know about the Washington game. The Washington game at home is going to be a tough test for them, as I expect the Huskies to come in there and beat them. But they can go to Cal and win. They can come back home and beat Arizona. I know Khalil Tate obviously will have something to say about that. So, that could be a tough stretch if they can squeak out a Cal win on the road. They might have some trouble with two home losses quickly in the season at the top of the Pac-12 schedule before they get Utah at home. Utah, don't sleep on Utah this year. They got good coaching, got some good athletes on that team. I like Utah. I've been a fan. And they go to Oregon. That's not going to be easy either. I wouldn't call that I wouldn't say that's going to be a win. And then away, they go from Oregon down to Arizona State. If anything's going to be a road win, that might be a good road win for them to get. Then they come home for the Battle of LA against USC. That'll be a tough one, and they get Stanford at home as well to end the season. That'll be a tough one as well. So, Chip Kelly's first season. I'm not seeing very many guaranteed wins, or just other than maybe that Fresno State game. They play Colorado actually right after that Fresno State game. I missed Colorado in there because they have to play Colorado. And then, of course, the three teams they played from the north are Stanford, Cal, and Washington. So, you're getting maybe one little break from Cal, but Cal's going to be solid this year. They got a quarterback coming back. They got a good head coach. Don't count Cal out. They got a good little fast defense as well. So they're not going to be a slouch. None of the Pac-12 schools are going to be slouches. Maybe in Arizona State, but I think Herm Edwards, even though he might not be the best X's and O's guy, he's definitely an energy guy. He's going to get his players ready. They're going to be inspired to play for a guy like him. I think this year he's going to be their biggest fan. He's probably great for. I think honestly, when I saw that he was going there, it's kind of a really, you're going to leave your cushy studio job for ESPN and go coach a bunch of kids down in hot Tempe, Arizona in summertime where it's freaking sweltering until, maybe October. But it is what it is, to each their own for Coach Edwards. But if anything, he's going to have them energized and ready. I don't know about the X's and O's and whether he's going to get some good, I don't know about his assistants and coordinators and what it's going to be for play calling, but they are kind of lacking on their skill. They don't have a Khalil Tate. At least Kevin Sumlin's coming in there cold with a Khalil Tate already there. So we'll have to see how it works for Arizona State. All right, we'll come back after the break, and I'm going to do some stuff on the class rankings. As we have some updates regarding the ESPN 300 and the recruiting stuff, as we're going to go over to the class of 2019 recruiting and see who which schools are going to be grabbing the biggest names from the ESPN Top 300. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA Podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back to GSMC Football Podcast, the college football edition, as we come back and do some talk on the future of college football, the updates from the ESPN 300 and the updated rankings for the recruiting and such. So we'll do that in just a moment. But, I just wanted to touch on the fact that the SEC needs 4 days. That just tells you how much of a roadshow it could be sometimes for college football. I know the South, it's tough to compare when you have. We just talked about LA. We talked about the LA schools down there and how I know UCLA is kind of a basketball school, even though now they're going to get a high profile coach and Chip Kelly and hopefully turn that, make that program a little more relevant. But you just had Chosen Rosen and he couldn't really do much either down there. It's just crazy, though. Here in the West Coast in California, this is nothing against. This is just an observation. You need 4 days down there in the SEC. 4 days of coverage. It's just the media. It's media. It's what people want to listen to. It's what people basically not all they have to listen to. But the options are a little more limited down there than they are out here. And in LA, sometimes it actually can be tough to get people hyped for college football and hyped for the big next season of Trojans football or Bruins football down there, because there's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot. LA is obviously the sprawling city with multiple pockets of different financial situations and living situations and blah blah blah, what it may have you. But the fans are tough to find sometimes, because in the South, if you went to Auburn or if you went to Alabama or you went to Mississippi or you went to or Ole Miss especially, or Mississippi State or something like that, or Florida, you're probably still there. You're probably still down there. You probably found a job around that area. If anything, you're going to maybe go to Tennessee or Nashville, Texas, somewhere like that. Not saying everybody does. It's not keyholing you. I'm not lumping you together. I'm just making a generalization a little bit here. But they're still there. The whole thing I said about the college is great, because you can be an alumni, like your alumni. My uncle's alumni of Cal, but he's a Cal Bear alumni. So he's a Cal Bear. He identifies himself as a Cal Bear. I'm a Cal Bear. I'm going to go root for my Cal Bears. I was part of that school. I'm still part of that school. I love the fact that I graduated from there, blah, blah, blah. Everything. Go watch The Blind Side. The Blind Side with Tim McGraw and Sandra Bullock. They went to Ole Miss. They're Ole Miss fans. They have an apartment in Oxford, Mississippi, even though they live in Nashville or Memphis, wherever they live in Tennessee. They have an apartment down there, and they go live down there. Well, I'm pretty sure that the real Tuohys actually had that too, because it's obviously based off of a real family. But they're huge. They're boosters. They're involved in the program. There's a lot of people who do that. Who are alumni. Even if they live a state away, everything's kind of jam packed down there. I mean, I'm still in California right now, and it's still 7 hours to go. If I was an alumni, say I'm an alumni of UCLA, and I got a job up here in Sacramento or in San Francisco or wherever I am, it's still still upwards of 6-7 hours to go to a game. Or, I mean, I know that going to a game is different than watching, but still, you're separated. You're away from the culture, you're away from there's just so much stuff going on. You can even go down to LA to get more involved and have trouble because you could be sidetracked by 4 different things that are going on, whether it's movies, entertainment, beaches, weather, golf. I mean, everything that's going on down there. Disneyland, baseball. I mean, there's all the sports going down there now. NFL is becoming even bigger. They're building a new stadium down there in LA. So college sports can get kind of lost out here sometimes. And I mean, the program quality of the actual performance on the field has a lot to do with it because short-term attention spans here, and it kind of same thing. Pac-12 gets it all like that. So we're going to keep it all in one day. Short attention span, a lot of stuff for people to do. We're just going to pack it all into one day versus the SEC is let's make it 4 days, baby. We're going to have a full extravaganza. People are going to come to it. It's going to be down here in Birmingham. They can come to the event. I mean, I'm not saying that people have time on their hands, but just they seem that they know they're going to get viewership all 4 days. People are going to watch every day. The Alabama fans are going to watch one day. The Auburn fans are going to watch the next day if they're on. I'm assuming they're on separate days, but that would make sense if you separate the bigger schools, like put Georgia on one day, Alabama the other day, Auburn the other day, Florida the other day, and you kind of mix it around. You can sprinkle in the other schools as well, but you think you'd put a big school in each day to get the viewership. It's just crazy that they have this. I mean, they call it a mouth mania or whatever it is, or gag fest or gab fest, whatever it may be. That's just interesting watching it and kind of soaking it all in, the difference in the culture. I mean, you kind of get. I mean, you have basically the SEC. Then you have the SEC Light, which is kind of like the ACC. The problem is the problem with the ACC is it's too top heavy. You have Clemson and Miami or Florida State, basically either one. Because I mean, when Florida State was good, Miami was kind of it lost, and then they get Mark Richt and they're fine. But you have those 3 schools, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you're not really questioning anything else. In the SEC, you have Georgia, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Auburn, Mississippi State is going to be good this year, probably. I mean, Nick Fitzgerald's a good quarterback. I mean, LSU has been historically good. So, I mean, you got lots of options. Same thing in the Big Ten. It's up there. It's up north. I mean, it's a little less hubbub going around. You're in the smaller schools. I mean, the thing is, think about the schools at Pac-12. Here's just a comparison. I'm just thought about what this is crazy actually. In the Big 12, so you have LA. 2 schools in LA, crazy. You have 2 schools in the Bay Area, crazy. All stuff, tons of stuff to do, all over the place. You have Washington is in Seattle. Washington State that's the only real. Washington State and Oregon State are really the only 2 schools that are in small, more rural areas. Washington State's in Pullman, is out in the middle of eastern Washington, and then Oregon State is in Corvallis, which actually is an hour from Portland, so it's still not that far away from a bigger city. And then obviously Eugene is where Oregon State, University of Oregon is, and that probably I have to give them credit. Eugene. If anybody's going to rally, if there's a town that's going to rally around a college and a sports, I mean, Austin Stadium is not small. I mean, they fill that thing, and it can get kind of the same kind of culture for Oregon football as it does in some across the country. Some of those other big programs Tuscaloosa, Alabama shuts down for the day. Auburn, Alabama shuts down for the day. Oxford, Mississippi shuts down for the day. Starkville, Mississippi shuts down for the day. Where's Starkville? Oh, that's where Mississippi State is, actually. Did you know that? I mean, think of some of these towns that you don't know where they are. It's very interesting because, I mean, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Where's that? That's where University of Arkansas is. Okay, Tom, enough with your geography nerdness. We know you know where all the colleges are. Gainesville, Florida. Sorry, I decided to do one more. But, you know, just interesting that you... It makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. It's not surprising whatsoever that you have the differences. You see, okay, ACC's 2 days, Big Ten's 2 days, Pac-12's 1 day. And then the SEC's 4 days long. I mean, think about it. Where is like the only... Where in the SEC is a school in a big city? Where? Georgia's not in Atlanta. It's in Athens, Georgia. Florida, Gainesville. I'm trying to think right now, really off the top of my head. The only one I can think of is South Carolina. It's in Columbia. It's in Columbia, South Carolina, which is the capital of that state. So, I mean, that's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Baton Rouge. Okay, fine. Okay, there you go. There's two schools that are in the capital of their state. I don't even think Missouri is in the capital. I mean, I think it's in Columbia. It's also in Columbia, Missouri. But there you go. I'm trying to think off the top of my head where all these schools are. Knoxville. It's just the culture. It's just culture. Football is king. Football season is coming, and people are getting ready for it. And I mean, you see the college game day. Why do you think college game day goes to the SEC and ACC schools more often than they do the other schools or the Big Ten schools? Because the fanship is more incorporated. It's more incorporated. It is. It just is. I mean, that's why Stanford Stadium's not that big. Cal, not that big. I mean, you have other schools. I know Utah. That's in Salt Lake City. It's a bigger city. Colorado's in Boulder, right outside of Denver. A lot of things to do there too. I mean, I can keep going. Tempe, right next to Phoenix. Tucson's a bigger city in itself. So I mean, there you go. That's pretty much the Pac-12 for you right there. And it tells you that. I mean, look at the SEC. It's just much more. I don't want to say diluted. It's more diluted out west. It's more concentrated in the south. By the cities, because people just go crazy and they need 4 days of media days to get them ready for the season, I guess. But, you know, it's just it's exciting though. We're gonna have the Pac-12 is interesting because the Pac-12 hasn't had a representative in the college football playoff since the first year I think it started with Oregon, when Oregon got beat by Jameis Winston in the Rose Bowl. So. I mean, actually, no. They had Washington 2 years ago with Jake, his sophomore year. Jake Browning did take Washington to it his sophomore year, but that's it. They had two schools, no USC, no Stanford, no UCLA in it yet. And then, unfortunately, this year is that nobody really is going to be. I mean, the fact that they beat up on each other too much. The way their scheduling works, so they actually play the 9-game conference schedule, unlike some other schools that are hopefully going to be going that way. Or some of their conferences. There's one other conference that doesn't play a 9-game schedule. We talked about it on Friday. It's the SEC, and Nick Saban wants it, and so does Gus Malzahn. So if maybe the two higher profile coaches in that conference can get on board, I know Nick Saban's been wanting it for a long time. He wants to play that 9-game conference schedule because he hates. I mean, he probably doesn't like having that. He probably likes having that Citadel game in between before the Iron Bowl, but he'll gladly play 2 non-conference games as they play they usually do get thrown in a big school, though. They're playing Louisville this year, though, so I mean, it's not going to be the toughest test for them, I don't think. But I mean, getting them to a 9-game conference schedule would even it out. Every Power 5 conference would have a 9-game conference schedule with 3 non-conference games. So if the SEC is going to go there, hopefully they go there soon, and then we can have some uniformity. But, you know, the Pac-12, if there was going to be unfortunately, there's going to be a school that was really going to pop onto the stage again, would be Washington again. They got to go undefeated. The Pac-12 schools have to go undefeated. If there's going to be a school to get into the Pac-12 championship, the college football playoff, they have to be the champion of the conference, and they probably have to have at least maybe one loss, if not undefeated, because a one-loss Pac-12 champion versus a one-loss, I don't know, a one-loss Pac-12 champion against, I'm assuming Alabama wins the SEC. Say it's a one-loss Georgia team that lost the SEC championship game to Alabama, and that was their one loss of the year. Do you take them over a one-loss Pac-12 champion, whether it's Washington or Stanford or what have you, USC, doesn't matter? That's the question that the conference college football playoff committee. Do you take two SEC schools? Do you get that crazy rabid Georgia fan base that is crazy, or do you take the champion from another conference that is supposed to be this great conference out there out west? So that's the question they're going to have to answer for us coming this season. And that's a pretty good scenario right there. I mean, you could think the same thing with Michigan. I think this Georgia poll has a little more pull, especially because they were in the final last year. It just makes it a little more spicy and more interesting for me, especially. All right, we'll come back and do the actual. We're actually going to do the recruiting talk. I went on a little tangent that ended up lasting the whole segment as we do the outlook for this season. But we're going to talk about the class rankings in this last segment of the day today. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, final segment of the day today here. As we come into this last segment, we're going to talk about the recruiting actually today. As you know, we talked about the recruiting ESPN 300 and the 2019 class as we go over kind of giving updates on the rankings, who's getting who's signing where, who's committing to who, as we still wait on Kayvon Thibodeau to decide where he's going to go, as he's still the top ranked guy on the ESPN 300 defensive end from Westlake Village, California, as 6'5", 234 pound defensive end, as he is not picked to school. But the other top three guys, the other guys in the top four has kind of shuffled around a little bit, but Nolan Smith, the defensive end from Bradenton, Florida, went to the IMG Academy, which just basically means he's already been to college for a couple of years, because that's basically what it is, college prep. He's going to be going to Georgia, as he's a 6'3", 234 pound defensive end, as he's got the 5-star recruit as well. I mean, most of these guys, pretty much the top 11 are all 5-star recruits from ESPN. So, and of those top 11, looks like 6 have actually committed. So we still are waiting. We're still waiting on the number one guy, obviously Kayvon Thibodeau. We're waiting on Darnell Wright for the offensive tackle from Huntington, West Virginia, 6'6", 300 pounds, 5-star recruit. He has not decided where he wants to go yet. There is another offensive tackle. We talked about Pierce Quick, I think, a couple weeks ago. He's going to Alabama, as he committed a few months ago. He committed, a few months ago. I'm looking at the wrong date. He committed last year, as he knew he was going there. He's from Trussville, Alabama, as he's a 6'5", 284 pound offensive tackle, as he's a big boy going to his hometown school. Keon Green, talked about him a little bit too. Also the offensive tackle from Humboldt, Texas, 6'5", 218 pounds. He's going to Texas A&M. So, I mean, seeing a little bit of a trend here. You got the Florida kid going to Georgia, Texas kid going to Texas, Alabama kid going to Alabama. So staying in the same proximity a little bit. Darnell Wright, like I said, has not decided yet on his. He's probably got about 20 schools on his board, but when it comes to whether he has gotten an offer from them, at least 20 schools. It's pretty much everybody, so he'll have the pick of the litter. I think I went through all of them last time, and I'm not going to list all the schools off again. Basically, think of a blue blood school. He's probably got an offer from them. We have, I think somebody we haven't talked about, Owen Popo. I'm trying to think if this is correct spelling. It's Pappoe. So Popo, Owen Popo. He's from Loganville, Georgia. 6'1", 209-pound linebacker. He's going to Auburn, which is going to be a cool little addition. That's going to be a great addition for Auburn. Something they haven't really had. They've been obviously had the big names at running back. Jared Stidham's still a quarterback. Jared Stidham's a guy you got to watch this year. He's an interesting little game manager. I like what he can run. He's got some movement in the pocket. Could be a very, very manageable backup in the NFL. Eventually, obviously, I think he's still pretty young. I don't think he's a senior quite yet, but coming off the shoulder injury, hopefully get him have a little. I mean, think about it, when you get surgery though, you can be wary. But the thing about surgery is you're reconstructing that entire shoulder or whatever you're doing. Like you're saying, for baseball, pitchers get Tommy John surgery, which is their one of their ligaments in their elbow tear, basically, or gets really strained. It's an ulnar collateral ligament, your UCL, and your elbow tears, and they take another ligament, a perfectly healthy ligament from your hand or from your foot, and put it in there. And it's a fully healthy ligament, and they can repair it to where it's actually better than it was the way how you were born, actually. So it's actually better, and you can see guys throwing harder and everything in the pitching standpoint. So I'm expecting Jared Stidham. He got I think it was a little bit of a labrum issue he was having in his shoulder. Hopefully it was repaired well enough to get him healthy, but I'm expecting him to be maybe a little bit better because you rehab it back correctly, and you could be ready because it's Jarrett Stidham. I keep calling him Jared. Sorry, Jarrett Stidham. This is a guy who's 6'3". He's got all the intangibles you want. He's a good-looking guy. I mean, think about quarterbacks. Of course, they made when Jimmy Garoppolo went over to the Niners, they're like, oh, we like the quarterback look. If you like Colin Cowherd, and always has this comment when he says he's got the look of the quarterback. He's a good-looking guy. I mean, this thing has probably had less adversity, and basically what they're saying is the fact that he's good-looking makes him. You expect that he has confidence, and he's confident in himself because he was probably very sought after in high school, maybe, and in college by the ladies. So you can go from there and attest to it and be like, okay, he's got the quarterback look. He's got a lot of confidence in himself because he's so good looking. So he probably has a lot of confidence on the field too. So I mean, I got that from somebody else. Colin Cowherd can take credit for that. Colin, if you hear whispers about this, you can tweet me. I tweeted at you enough, and you actually have responded to me a couple times. So you know who I am. But I'm just going off that. Jarrett Stidham, I think he could be an interesting quarterback in the NFL. He's only a redshirt sophomore, so he's actually going to be. That means he's a junior academically. He could play. He technically has 2 more years left, or actually 3 more years left of college of eligibility. So a redshirt sophomore, and I'm trying to think. He did have that. He had a neck injury that got him a season-ending neck injury when he played for Baylor. Then he transfers to Auburn after 1 semester of community college, and played pretty well at Auburn after being named their starting quarterback at the end or beginning of the 2017 season. So he's played he's only played 1 season started 1 season at Auburn, and then he's coming into his 2nd season at Auburn. This is a guy 6'3". He's listed at 6'4", 214. I've also seen 6'3". It's all kind of once I see 6'3", you're fine. You're good. You're good. 6'3", 6'4", doesn't matter. 6'3" is a quarterback height. 6'4" is fine too. But 214 pounds. I'd still take 200 pounds even right now as a 21-year-old. He's not. He turns 22 August 8th. So this is a guy who I think can be interesting. He's played in the SEC. SEC quarterbacks kind of get lost, and we're going to have some big ones to talk about in the draft pretty soon here. It's going to be a couple of years probably, but in the next few years, we're going to have Tua Tagovailoa coming out. We're going to have Jake Fromm coming out. We're going to have Nick Fitzgerald coming out. We're going to have this guy we're just talking about right now. I know Nick Fitzgerald actually is probably sooner rather than later, and so is the quarterback for Missouri, Locke from Missouri as well. So I know Tom, this is supposed to be the 2019 recruiting section, but I just was thinking about Auburn here, and Auburn, like we talked about, they're getting that big linebacker from Georgia, as I think is that what it says, from Georgia? But no, I really like Jarrett Stidham, and I think that he's gonna. If he can hopefully come back from that injury, I'm trying to figure out if it was. I knew it was a shoulder injury that he's coming back from, and he had to get a little bit of minor surgery. for that. So whether it's something that he is going to have to worry about, whether it's going to be a kind of a nagging thing or not. I know that he has. So it was a minor surgery on his left shoulder, which I'm thinking which is not his throwing shoulder, unless he's like me and is a cool lefty. So you little less to worry about there. But if it's not his throwing shoulder, but I like the guy because he could run. He could run. He's got legs. He's 6'3 and a half or whatever you want to say, and he could run. So this is a guy who's been well in that kind of fast-paced offense that you see at Auburn. He's had good running backs. Kerryon Johnson last year and him were a great little dynamic duo, whether they're going to have the quarterback read. I mean, they could basically run a triple option if they wanted to, or at least a double options, read option, or a lot of RPOs. But basically, it is a triple option for them because two of the options are either Stidham running or Stidham throwing, and then you can hand it to Kerryon Johnson as well. So you have the mesh point in the middle. Okay, you're going to hand it to Kerryon? No, you're going to pull it out of his stomach. Okay, are you going to run now, or are you going to throw? So it's always cool to have a quarterback where you're going to make this defense make two decisions basically on every play. If you're going to run that play action play, you're either going to, like I say, you read the defense. You're going to hand it to Kerryon Johnson. Pull it out of his stomach. Okay, now you can make another decision. You can say, okay, I want to run or not. Basically, is he going to run? Is he not going to run? Or is he going to throw? Where's the defense? How's the coverage? And that's how. I mean, he beat Alabama last year. They beat Alabama. I mean, this is plain and simple. And they beat a very good Alabama defense with some very good NFL players on that team. I mean, Deron Payne is no joke. Deron Payne is a player. He's going to be very good in the NFL for the Redskins. Looking forward to watching him this year as well. So. Look at they still had, and they also had Minka is back there too as well. He threw it against Minka Fitzpatrick, as he is going to be. Where'd he end up going? Arizona? No, they got a quarterback. I think he went to Miami. I want to say Miami. Got Minka Fitzpatrick, yeah, Dolphins. So he's going to be an interesting player as well to watch as he'll have to face Tom Brady, but. Jarrett Stidham, I like Jarrett Stidham. I've always been a fan and like watching him play for Auburn. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm assuming that Auburn's always been a very good school at getting running backs. I think they already have another one. I think last name is White or something like that. They have a very good little running back there at Auburn as well. All right, going back to the recruiting stuff, I wanted to just touch on the rest of the guys who have not declared yet. There's still a couple guys who have not decided where they want to go. This is for next year. These are top 10 guys who can make or break a school. I mean, right now the rankings regarding the ESPN recruiting rankings, Alabama's still on number 1 with Texas A&M 2, Oklahoma 3, Michigan 4, Ohio State 5, Notre Dame 6, Georgia 7, LSU 8, Clemson 9, Florida State 10. Clemson's trending up as they just got 2 recruits to go to them as well. So, it's just based off of the commits, and then also the quality of the commits will help that team get up the board. So if there's a team for Keon Thibodeau, whoever he decides, he's got a plethora of schools, basically can go wherever he wants. Same thing for, Isaiah Sofster. He's a defensive tackle, 6'4", 330-pound defensive tackle from Amite, Louisiana. This is another 5-star recruit. This is the number 8 guy on the ESPN 300. He's got he actually has a smaller list than you think compared to these other guys, but basically the SEC and then a couple Big 10 schools and a couple Big 12 schools as well, and then a couple ACC schools too. So he'll have a decision to make. He still has one to make coming up. So. That's one of the guys, and then I think the last 2 guys are the 10th and 11th guys. Zach Harrison, a defensive end from Lewis Center, Ohio, 6'6", 244 pounds. Poof. As I bet you Ohio State is trying to get him badly. That's Zach Harrison, as he's another 5-star guy. He actually doesn't have Ohio State on his list. It's Penn State, Alabama, Cincinnati, Georgia, Iowa State, Kentucky, Michigan State, Notre Dame. Oh, there it is, Ohio State. I'm blind. Stanford, Toledo, USC, and Wisconsin. So seeing Stanford on there makes me think that he's if you're a school who's recruiting somebody and you also see that they're being recruited by Stanford, you got to be thinking pretty good, because that means that they're probably, if not definitely, capable of having going through the academic rigors of a school like Stanford. Notre Dame is on there as well. So you got both of the two top athletic schools that are both very good athletically and very good academically. And Michigan's there too. Michigan, maybe you don't need, I don't know, I don't want to speculate as to certain things. Michigan's a very good school too, but I don't know how demanding they are of their players, versus like Stanford, you get no breaks. Notre Dame, you get no breaks. Basically, you have to be a man of Stanford, to be a man of Notre Dame, to exemplify their values of those universities. Michigan is a very good academic school. I'm not sure what their requirements are of their players academically are, but we've already seen a lot of issues with Notre Dame with them having to dismiss players. I don't know if Stanford hasn't really had much history of that, but I know the religious aspect of Notre Dame can also get involved as well. All right, but yeah, so he's deciding. That's Zach Harrison, and then the last guy of the show is the number 11th guy, Clay Webb, and he's a center from Oxford, Alabama. Speaking of it, Oxford, Alabama. It's interesting. You have Oxford, Alabama, and Oxford, Mississippi, but there's no school in Oxford, Alabama. There's one in Mississippi, though. Ole Miss is in Oxford, Mississippi. But he went to Oxford. He's from Oxford, Alabama. 6'4", 307-pound center. As he's got a decision to make as well, as he has just a handful of schools. Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida, Georgia Tech, Michigan, Mississippi State, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Tennessee, which is not a bad list at all. Just a little bit shorter than some of the other guys, but he'll have a pick of the litter as well with some of the top. He's got all the top schools on there right now for pretty much for the Pac-12. For the Big Ten, SEC, and ACC as well. So he'll have a decision to make as well. All right, that'll wrap it up for the show today. We'll come back on for Wednesday and talk about the Big Ten Media Days, and we'll see what stuff that Jim Harbaugh said on today, actually, and tomorrow. So everybody have a good Monday, and we'll be back on Wednesday, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.